If you want a slightly more challenging Fat Eighth pattern, check out our Fat Eighth something quilt. Check out our Fat Eighth something. I can't remember the name. Okay. Today we have a shortcut quilt that's simple but definitely not boring. It's called Fat Eighth Flapjacks, completely free pattern at Fat Quarter Shop, and it's perfect for a teen room or a college dorm. So download the free pattern at Fat Quarter Shop, subscribe to our channel, and let's get started. When you're cutting your fat eighths, this is a great diagram to follow, and from each fat eighth you're going to cut 6 3 by 8 inch rectangles. So that's why I want to use this wide ruler today. To do that, I have layered 4 fat eighths. I have starched them and I have them pressed. And I'm going to cut one edge off for a clean cut. Then I'm going to rotate my fabric, trying not to move the shifting of the fabric. You just want to keep it all nice and together. And with this ruler, you just put it on the 8 inch line. So it's right here, and just make sure it's lined up all the way across and make a cut. And what's great is there's very little waste in this quilt. Now from here, we need to cut rectangles. So from here, I'm gonna line up my ruler here and cut a straight line. And since you're cutting through 4 layers, you can kind of pick them up to make sure you've cut through the edge of all of them and that one of them didn't slip underneath. And then just rotate, and we're gonna cut 3 inch rectangles 6 times. So from here, you could actually cut first at the 6 inch, move to the 3 inch. That gives you 2 of each color, or you can cut at the 3 inch line each time. And when you're working with a bigger ruler like this, sometimes you have to press down a little bit harder so it doesn't shift. And as I'm cutting, I am lining up 2 lines to make sure I'm staying straight. So it's super easy to cut all of those fat eighths. This is your only waste, which is hardly anything. From here, you will go ahead and cut your background fabric, and then we're gonna piece our block. This quilt is super easy. We have no diagonal seams, and it is just a super easy quilt. So if you are looking for a quilt for maybe a kid to make or a teenager to make, this is a great one. And here what I'm doing is I'm taking 4 of my fat eighth rectangles that are my A's, and I'm taking my fabric B squares. I'm going to show you how the block forms, but also talk about fabric placement. So this block uses 4 of your fat eighths, so it would be good when you are picking your fabrics to pick 4 different colors, 4 different prints, and different shapes. So you can see we've got like a flower, a geometric, a busy print, a medium print. Just mix up your prints, your colors, and your scale so that it'll look really nice. And for this quilt, you're going to make 32 blocks that look just like this. And now I'm going to show you how to sew the block. So from here, what I like to do is just put my fabrics together that I'm going to be sewing at one time and pin them. Now, even though this is a beginner quilt, I would pin. And when I pin, I would pin both sides. And I know it's not a very big seam, but I would pin and just put it right back on the board. And one tip that I do have is anytime you're making a quilt, I would always, no matter what pattern it is, make 1 block and see if you like your pressing before you move to assemble all the blocks in the quilt. Now from here, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam, and we're going to sew using our fill color 2600. So from here, I'm going to just sew each piece individually. Cut between each one and put it back on my design board, since I have already planned out my placement for this block so that everything will stay the way we had it planned. Now, after I'm done, because I did not chain piece, I'm going to cut off all these little extra pieces of thread, and we're going to bring out the iron and iron these 3 pieces. So from here, I'm just going to take the items off my design board, iron them, and then put them back on my design board. We're going to press toward the fabric B rectangle, and I like to set my seam by putting my iron on it flat about 5 seconds, and then press to the darker fabric. And when you're ironing, it's best to not shake your iron, just be really nice and even. So now we're going to sew these 3 pieces together. The first thing I'll do is put the top 2 pieces right side together and pin on each side. And I know this is just a straight seam, but pinning is going to give you better results. So once you've pinned this 2 sides, pin a couple times in the center. And when you're looking at your piece, you don't want to see any of the fabric from the back. And when you turn it over, you don't want to see fabric from the front. That means it's lined up straight. And we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Go back to your design board, open it back up, and we're going to add this piece. And you just want to make sure your background squares are on different corners. Put your fabrics right sides together and pin just like you did the other side. And now we're going to press. Now looking at your pattern, you're going to press down, and these arrows are your pressing instructions. So I'm going to set each seam and then press according to the pattern, so that's down. And I put the iron right on that seam. Now your block is almost done. Now here you can see, if you have it this way, you've got 2 squares over here. If you turn it this way, you have 2 squares over here, and you want to make sure your 2 squares are on the left and your single square is on the right. Put these right sides together, pin, and sew. Your last step is to set your seam and press toward this fabric on the outside, and your block is all done. Continue making your blocks until you have 32 blocks, and you're going to lay out 4 blocks in each row, and you're going to have 8 rows. So this is our quilt sample, and you can see this is the top row, and you can see these blocks have the rectangles on the right. The second row, you have the rectangles on the left. And that is the beauty of this pattern, is to give you this serpent effect. And because of the way we had you press your seams, all your seams will nest when you are putting them together. So super easy and great for a beginner. This quilt is probably one of our fastest shortcut quilts. If you want a Fat Eighth quilt that's a little bit more challenging, try our Fat Eighth fruitcake pattern. It's also free at Fat Quarter Shop. And we'd love for you to subscribe, comment, and share this video. See you next time.